Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to this meeting this morning. I've called it a King's Annual Update rather than the rather more grandiloquent the state of the university under which I think it's been built. In any event, what I hope to do in this and my colleagues is to talk about where we are and where we're going, and to receive questions, comments, suggestions. Well, I want to begin by welcoming everybody to the opening salvo of our 225th anniversary year. We've recently taken a pretty heavy hit, as you know, but the flood of 2014 has brought out the best in Kings. And I want to begin by thanking Nick Noah Hatt and our marvelous Don. You'll note that Nick, in addition to the dove, we're not sure if that particular one's going to come back or not. You'll notice that he's playing around with a computer there on top of the ark. I don't know what that signifies, but thank you, Nick. And thanks to our marvelous Dons and to Alex Doyle and the facilities folks, and most of all to our intrepid students, those directly hit by the flood, and those who are helping them in the cleanup and all of the other things that you're doing to help. You do Kings proud, all of you, with your fine spirit and your can-do attitude, so thank you. But today is a day for us to look back a little bit on last year and to look forward to the future. And speaking very personally, I see the future of Kings like this. There they are, all 6 of my grandchildren. I can give you their names and social insurance numbers if you want. Anniversaries are a time for reflection, so let me go back to a year ago when we held a session just like this, and quite a lot was happening. So the question is, what have we done since then? Well, we modernized our governance, we strengthened our financial integrity, and we renewed our board. And all of these tasks were timely, and each one is important for what we do from day to day at King's. But the most valuable work by far was adopting a plan that we all built together, our strategic plan. And why is that important? Because it gets at our heart and soul. It reminds us of who we are, it tells us where we want to go, and it tells us how to get there. Our strategic plan tells us that we want to preserve the eternal Kings while building on that foundation for the future. So, what is the eternal Kings, the Kings that we hold dear? It is the belief that only by understanding our past can we live fully as human beings, and only in living life as fully engaged citizens can we shape our future. At King's, we believe that a liberal education encourages thought about the enduring concerns of humankind in contrast to the fashions of a particular time or the demands of a particular place or society. And to that end, we at King's believe in academic rigor, in educating the whole person, and doing this in community. Now, we do all this in the belief that without knowledge of how things were done in the past and how they are done elsewhere, there can be no intelligent conversation about how things might be other than as they are right now. A King's education opens minds to the alternatives and emboldens students to think about them, even when they go against the temper of our times. We seek to make of King's students educated citizens who are able to assess and, if need be, to resist the preferred and easy answers of the day. because they know that other answers are also worthy of consideration. A liberal education thus promotes independence of mind, personal autonomy, and a good society, one that rests on the existence of thoughtful and well-informed citizens who are willing to take an active part in society's betterment. It's important that what we hold dear is not just a precious thing for those of us in the club. It is rather the manifestation of what we wish to impart to our students so they can lead enriched lives. And then, through our students, these things will in turn resonate in our community and in our world. So if this is our mission, we need to express what is dear to Kings to different groups in society. It's a conversation first with our students and faculty and staff and alumni, and it's also a conversation with the public. Next, it's a conversation with the government, and finally, it's a conversation with Dalhousie. So what I'm presenting today comes from all four of these perspectives. Let me start with our internal conversation. Whenever I meet prospective students and their parents, I tell them that our vision is to lead our students to original thinking as laid out in core texts. And we do this in formal lectures and informal seminars and in after-hours conversations. We challenge our students to wrestle with these ideas in rigorous essays and in vigorous debates. We encourage our students to take part in a rich extracurricular life, embracing sports, music, poetry, literature, theater, and much more. This is the King's method, and we do all this in a uniquely interdisciplinary way and in close collaboration with a larger and more diverse university. That's what I tell folks when I'm speaking to our students, past, present, and prospective. Now, I think I understand King's reasonably well, but not being myself immersed in FIP, Combined Honors, and the J School, when I'm giving this pitch, I sometimes feel a little bit as if I'm dancing with my ski boots on, and I sometimes imagine that the audience sees itself as looking at a beautiful scene through frosted glass. But you know, when our faculty and our students tell the King's story, it's magical. It's the real McCoy. And when you do it, it produces electrifying results. So thank you, students and alumni and faculty, for taking part in the King's outreach. Here's one story from my travels last fall. Adriane and I were in Toronto, and we drove out to meet Kaylee Stollery, a gung-ho King's alumna who lives in Markham. This is a new city of about 150,000 people, which is part of Metro Toronto, and it's mostly filled with new Canadians. And you'll recognize Stollery as one of the grand WASP names of Toronto. But Kaylee told us that her 16-year-old son was the only Caucasian in his high school class. When he was much younger, the family was traveling in the States, and this little boy noticed a lone Chinese family dining in a restaurant filled with white Southerners. He wanted to say hi, and Kaylee asked him why. Well, because he was so used to being surrounded by Chinese classmates, his response was, well, because we're related. That's why he wanted to meet them. The point is this, that the face of Canada is changing fast, and our strategic plan takes account of this new reality and aims for a more diverse student population. The rest of the world is changing too. Here's a slide that shows the rise of the middle class in emerging countries. Now, note that in 2000, the US and the EU had 60% of the world's middle class. The US and the EU are the sort of mauve and violet bars, if you look at the left of the slide, going from about 20% to about 80%. And that compared in the year 2000 with 2% for India and China together. India and China are the two waves at the very bottom of the chart, and on the left you can see it's very small. China is red, India is orange. Well, today in 2014, the ratio is 50% for the EU and the US together, and 8% for China and India. By 2024, which is just 10 years from now, it will be about even, at 30% each. That is 30% for the EU plus the US, and 30% for India and China. If you look at the far right of the slide, then you will see that by 2050, India and China will together have about 60% of the world's middle-class population, while the US and the EU will have together about 10%. These are dramatic changes, and to meet them, our strategic plan calls for more international students. And it also calls for a look at strengthening our offerings of non-Western intellectual perspectives. Other contacts this past year with former students have given me some specifics about the value of the liberal arts education, that is the King's touchstone. Amy Hadfield, 1998, did FIP, and then she took a PhD at Oxford in classics. Now, she is the Jean Monnet Professor of European Studies at the Free University of Brussels. She writes papers on EU energy policies for Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany. Note that her degree is in classics, not in petroleum engineering. Adriane and I also met Karim Mahmoud, a graduate from 1988, at our alumni reception in London last September. After King's and Oxford, he became a lawyer in London, and he has worked in 40 countries helping Fortune 500 companies bring in new energy projects all over the world. He says this: FIP really helped me connect the dots. I can think beyond the letter of the law and consider other factors, bridge cultures, and think more globally. Stephanie Nolan, 1994 graduate, superstar, J School graduate. She's the Latin America Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail. She's won 7 national newspaper awards for her work in Africa and India, and is a 4-time winner of the Amnesty International Award for Human Rights Reporting. Don Harrison, another 1994 graduate, took FIP and then law, and now he's the head of mergers and acquisitions for Google. Note, he's not a computer scientist. He took FIP. Here's what he says about FIP. He says, you have to be flexible to survive FIP. There's a sort of naked intellectualism about the program, and while Aquinas and Aristotle are worlds away from Android, King's set me down a road of critical engagement that's always been helpful in everything I've done. Now, it's all very well for a few King's grads, as wonderful as they are, to sing the praises of the humanities. But we all know that the liberal arts are under siege around the world because parents want their children to take something useful like commerce or engineering so they can get a job in these hard economic times. So here's the conversation that I have and will continue to have with members of the public on the value of a liberal arts education. I would say this: arts grads are in equally good or even better shape for the world of work of the future, to say nothing of the intrinsic value of the liberal arts to us as human beings living here on planet Earth. But don't just take my word for it or the word of our King's grads. Listen to what the worldwide business community says about this. The prestigious American Academy of Arts and Sciences did a detailed survey last year, 2013, of U.S. employers, and 94% of U.S. employers endorsed a liberal education as either very important, 51%, or fairly important, 43%. And 3/4 of them 74%, would recommend a liberal education for their own child or for a young person they knew. Again last year, 2013, Oxford University surveyed 11,000 of its graduates in the humanities, philosophy, classics, English, etc., and 44% of them went into the commercial sector, jobs in finance, in management, in marketing, and in law. Another 32% went into the civil service and education, and 11% into the media, literature, and the arts. And here is that Oxford study's conclusion. The evidence collected here demonstrates that the long-established system of humanities-based higher education in Oxford has proven highly responsive to national economic needs. One investment banker who was interviewed in that Oxford process estimates that around 50% of senior banking officials that he knows in England have humanities backgrounds, not business, not mathematics, humanities. Now, here in Canada, the Canadian Council of Chief Executives surveyed its members again last year. And these are the CEOs of Canada's 150 largest companies. And when they were asked what qualities matter most to them when looking at new hires, a specific skill set ranked only number 6. The first 5 were all the things that King's does. If you look at the slide, this is what the 150 top CEOs in Canada want in their employees when they're evaluating new employees. 1, they want people skills. 2, communication skills. 3, problem-solving skills. 4, analytical abilities. 5, leadership skills. And only when you get down to number 6 are they interested in industry-specific knowledge and experience. John Manley, who is the head of the council, summarized it this way in a speech just last November. He said, "The common denominator across the economy is that everywhere employers are looking to recruit young people with a strong complement of soft skills such as the ability to communicate, think critically, and work in teams." And to finish off my conversation with the public, particularly with businesses and the commercial sector, I'd quote a Canadian banker, Matt Barrett, former CEO of the Bank of Montreal. "Anyone who can detect themes in Chaucer is certainly capable of learning double-entry bookkeeping in my bank." So let me close this conversation about the liberal arts by quoting again from 2 King's alumni, Don Sobey, honorary doctor, chair emeritus of the Empire Company. "In every field of endeavor today, business, medicine, law, government, education, success depends on people who understand the achievements and failures of our past and have the intellectual flexibility to deal with the unknown challenges of our future. The study of the liberal arts produces such people." And let's remind ourselves, Don Sobey showed his belief in us a month ago yesterday, by giving King's $2 million for scholarships, the largest gift from an individual in our 225-year history. Now that's commitment. I'll also quote King's alumna Emma Title, the columnist with the Maclean's magazine. She said this: "The problem with over-specialization is people change their minds." Thurgood Marshall, I'll remind you that Thurgood Marshall is the first black justice of the Supreme Court of the U.S. Thurgood Marshall originally wanted to be a dentist. In our mission to beat the employment market, we risk ignoring the fact that interests and expectations dramatically change. So read books and have fun. I'll just mention here that I took engineering physics at a university not very far away from this one in the 50s, and we had to do drawing and surveying, pen and ink drawings and surveying with spirit levels and rods. By the time I graduated from university, it had all gone. Because why? Drawings were being computerized, engineering drawings, and spirit levels were replaced with electronic beams. So I would have been out of a job if I'd stuck with engineering physics, because I didn't have any idea of those skills. Except I wouldn't have been stuck for a job, because people don't hire for specific skills, do they? That's the point. Now, turning our attention back to our internal King's audience, I'm going to suggest that King's is in the sweet spot with our emphasis on humanities in all of our programs. But what should the future of these programs look like? King's has been original for 225 years. We weren't only the first, but we've been changing ever since we started, because nothing stands still. After all, we began in 1789 by teaching Latin, Greek, and rhetoric, the standard curriculum for educated citizens of that day. But as society changed, we broadened out into English, history, and modern languages, and after that came the professional schools of divinity, law, and engineering, and now journalism. And we added all of these while continuing to build and refine our courses in the original core texts of Western civilization, culture, and philosophy. And we've done this in a uniquely interdisciplinary way, a method of examining the world that is gaining traction everywhere. So, what is King's place in the academic world of tomorrow? And as I've said, to answer this question, we're moving forward with our academic research and enrollment plans as called for in our strategic plan. Kim and Elizabeth will talk about these. But there's much more to this question than just asking ourselves what we would like to do, because this is a conversation that we need to have with the government of Nova Scotia. So to set the scene for that conversation, here are some basic facts about higher education in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia has 10 universities and 37,000 full-time university students. Of these, 20,000, or 54%, come from outside Nova Scotia. Of these 20,000 external students, 7,000 are from other countries, and 13,000 are from other provinces of Canada. 28% of Nova Scotia high school graduates go on to university, and this is the highest participation rate of any province in Canada. But even if our participation rate stays high, there will be fewer and fewer Nova Scotians coming to Nova Scotia universities because of demographics. Here is a slide that shows a decline of 30% in Nova Scotia high school graduates in just 10 years, from 11,000 graduates in 2009 to 8,500 graduates in 2019. So, if Nova Scotia universities are to maintain their total student body of 37,000, never mind growing, they will have to spend the resources to attract increasing numbers of students from away. And this includes us at King's, where our external students make up fully 65% of our total student body, and only 4% of that 65% are international. So, faced with all of these facts, how should the province of Nova Scotia think about university funding? Here's the conversation I would like to have with our government. I'd say, look, there are two ways of looking at things. Either the higher education sector is a problem to be solved, or it is a wonderful asset to be nurtured. Thankfully, most of the time our government takes the second approach. After all, think of this. Export earnings. Our university sector is the second largest export earner in the province. We bring in $860 million from students and their parents and so on from outside Nova Scotia, which is more than any other sector in Nova Scotia except for rubber tires. I see John Leaf laughing up there because he's got a rubber tire plant right in his backyard. It's more than oil and gas, it's more than fish, it's more than pulp and paper, it's more than lumber, it's more than agriculture. Immigration. Because of our dramatically declining demographics, you saw it on the slide, we need immigrants. And how better to attract new and highly educated citizens than to bring them to our first-class universities for 4 years? Economic development, look, the future for Nova Scotia lies in the knowledge economy, not in commodities. Our future is in IT, bioscience, and high-end services like film, video, music, management, finance, and human resources to serve the booming middle classes of the emerging world, and you saw the slide. Take for your example, I'm now speaking to the government, take for your example Will Stewart, who's a 2009 King's grad in English, whom I met at the annual Christmas party here at King's. Will went on to do an MA in film directing at Westminster College in London, and already he has had a film at Cannes. And from his base in Halifax, he is setting up a company in India to shoot 3 horror movies. Well, this is exactly the kind of international knowledge-based enterprise that Nova Scotia needs for a vibrant future. Now, with this as background, we have 2 sets of negotiations coming up with the province. First is a new Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between the province on the one hand and all of the universities on the other. And this is set to take effect on the 1st of April of 2015, so next year. The province will also enter into separate MOUs with each university, and King's will begin our negotiation in the coming weeks. Now, the Council of Nova Scotia University Presidents have as an objective for these 2 sets of negotiation to put all of us, all of the universities in Nova Scotia, on a sound financial footing for the foreseeable future. And in fact, the new government, in its recent election platform, said this: Nova Scotia is blessed with outstanding post-secondary institutions that graduates students from across the province and around the world, students whose skills, talents, and knowledge are needed in our province. A Liberal government recognizes our post-secondary graduates are the key to Nova Scotia's success. So we're hopeful. Well, where does King's fit into all of this? Well, Nova Scotia, like all other provinces, by the way, wants its universities to collaborate more and to reduce the overlap in course offerings. Well, King's is the poster child for this. Everything that we do is unique. There is no overlap with anyone. And we have a deep interlocking collaboration with Dalhousie and growing collaborations with NSCAD, the Mount, and others. Let me turn finally to our conversations with Dalhousie. King's-Dal relations are very warm, I believe. Right now, the Dal Senate is embarking on its periodic review of the Dal-King's relationship. So, if a tune-up is needed, we'll know soon. That said, King's is the minor partner by a huge margin, and it's only natural that even with all the goodwill in the world, which I believe to be in place at Dalhousie, the folks at Dal can unintentionally overlook us, so we need to be constantly explaining ourselves, and we need to quietly but persistently make our case, especially our hardworking staff whose daily personal contacts with their counterparts at Dal are vital in this. But the key component rests on the mutual success of our joint academic mission, and that, as I've said already, is very strong. It'll be further strengthened by our new academic plan, and on top of that, I'm glad to report that our incoming class at King's this year was overall the largest ever, with FIP registrations only slightly off their all-time high. And our job, once you, the students, are in the door in first year, our job is to keep you at King's for all 4 years, and that is vital to our continuing success with Dalhousie, and Elizabeth is going to talk a little about those challenges. Let me offer a few closing observations. In the last 18 months, I've been across Canada, often meeting with countless students and parents and academic colleagues and highly placed business and community leaders. Everyone looks on King's as the leader in Canada in what we do. We have many copycats, but we're the original, and we're still the best. For the future, we have a sound strategic plan to guide us, a plan that you and your colleagues built together. Our vision for King's is right, and our programs are sound. As we preserve what we have and build on it for the future, we are limited only by our imaginations. As we go through life, we need something to believe in that is larger than ourselves. King's is that something. And I see every day the devotion that you have for King's, and it pays off in the pride of our students, the students you serve as they learn about life. It pays off in the satisfaction of their parents, the ones you help as they realize how wise their children were to choose King's. It pays off in the hold that King's has on the hearts of our alumni. And it pays off in the lofty place that King's holds in the esteem of our sister universities across Canada and beyond. So thank you so much for everything that you do day in and day out for King's. I'm going to close now by quoting from Neil Turok, the director of the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics at Waterloo, and one of the world's great physicists, cosmologists. Together with Stephen Hawking, he produced a key component of this whole black hole theory. So that's Neil Turok. He's an eminent thinker who is seemingly as far away from the humanities as you can get. But he questions the value of our modern habit of surfing across the ocean of information on the internet, and he concludes this: "It seems to me that we need to create a modern version of the ancient Greek philosophers' fora, or Scotland's educational system in the late 18th century, where the principles and foundations of knowledge were questioned and debated, and where creativity, originality, and humility before the truth were the most highly prized qualities in a student." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is King's. Thank you. So now Jim is going to stand up and give us some words on the financial picture at King's.
Thank you, George. As George mentioned, I'm Jim Fitzpatrick. I'm the University Burser. The Burser, from the Latin for keeper of the purse, is the treasurer of a college university. That's an old definition. But in this modern age, my staff and I are responsible for all of King's administrative functions. That includes student accounts, purchasing, financial accounting and reporting, budgeting and forecasting, financing and investing, pension and endowment administration, risk management, information technology, human resources and payroll, facilities and project management. I was even tired with getting through that. So I'm going to briefly describe three of the top priorities for my office, but first a few words from a better known King's College Burser to keep in mind, and I like to keep this in mind as I work through the day. It's easy as an accountant to spend a lot of time on something you shouldn't be spending time on. The first priority for the office this year, at least, is the long-term financial health of the university. A necessary condition for the long-term financial health of any university is a balance between its resources and activities. Examples of resources include provincial operating grant, tuition fees, contributions from donors, and research grants. Examples of activities include educating and housing students, buying steam for heating, and purchase of library books, and renovations to the pit. So we're constantly bringing in resources and spending them on activities. And all universities in Canada are now having difficulty in achieving this balance. We're certainly not unique in that. There are about 100 institutions counting as universities in Canada of all types and sizes and shapes. And every one of them is having problems with declining government funding. If they're public, there are very few private ones here in Canada. Flat or declining enrollment, rising costs, global competition, aging campuses, and they're all contributing to this difficulty to balance the resources with the activities that are going on. So a long-term financial planning committee of the board is going to be working this year to prepare recommendations on the university's strategic financial options, which will support the academic mission of the university. This is a key. This is not unique to us, but we do need to put in place a longer-term strategy in order to ensure that we can balance these activities and resources. The second priority is fulfilling our social license to operate. I've taken this phrase from the strategic plan that was produced last year, and I'll just read a little bit from that plan. As an institution supported by the public, we have an obligation to be open, accountable, and accessible. In a phrase, we are seen to be fulfilling a public good and thus have a social license to operate. To these ends, we intend to be continually up to date with best practices in governance, both administrative and financial. This is far from a trivial undertaking, and in this complex world, best practice is a moving target. The two areas that will see the most attention this year from my office are financial controls and risk management. For instance, all of the university's important financial controls are under review this year and will be changed as required. So all of you who sit at desks and get emails from me will be hearing about this in the next few months. In addition to financial and economic risks, there are many other sources of risks for an institution like ours, such as reputation, political, environmental, and infrastructure. Risk management is the process of managing events or circumstances that could significantly enhance or impede the ability of the university to achieve its objectives. So all of these risks need attention in some shape or form. And our board will be developing an integrated risk management plan to ensure that we do meet our commitments in this area. The third priority for my office is renewing the campus. That's three words that have a lot of impact, I suppose. We have arguably the most attractive campus in Nova Scotia, but the average square foot here is about 60 years old, and it shows. So to the extent we're going to be able to fund it, we want to make the changes that we need to this campus to keep it the most attractive. One of the things we're going to be doing is a campus energy survey, which has actually begun and will be finished in a few months, and from that we'll be able to see how we can improve our footprint on this earth. We're also looking actively everywhere we can for contributions from the government and other external sources to fund capital projects. For instance, as you know, the pit is currently undergoing renovations along with the chapel, and other work is going to continue this year as the funding is available. So that's a very brief look at the Bursar's office. Thank you for your attention, and later on I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Sliding into the new year. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm the registrar here at King's. And as Dr. Cooper said, change is afoot in the world, and the Registrar's office is changing right along with it. I'm going to briefly cover the major priorities that the office has been focusing on and will continue to focus on in the coming year. The first is mastering the changing demographics that George was referring to, and also the changes in the competition in recruitment that we've been seeing in the external environment. We're going to be building an increased retention focus for the college, and we're going to be considering ways to be more competitive in the internationalization of the university. So one of the areas, one of the forces at work is demographics. So how is King's doing in relation to the demographics? King's is doing extremely well. This slide shows overall enrollment changes at the college. And King's student enrollment has grown by 37% in the last 13 years. This year, enrollment dropped at 9 out of the 16 universities in Atlantic Canada, while King's enrollment has grown. My next slide, thank you. My next slide shows new and continuing student enrollment changes. So new student enrollment dropped at 12 out of the 16 Atlantic Canadian universities. And in September, King's welcomed the largest group of new students in the history of the college. For next year, things are looking well. That dove that came may have wreaked havoc in 2 areas of the college, but it did bring applications. The application for foundation year program is up by 14% over this time last year, so that's a good sign, and we'll be monitoring that closely over the coming season. Now, one of the things that's highlighted in this slide is that it highlights a change that for the last 2 years in a row now, we experienced a decrease in the continuing students at the college. Now, next slide. Any consideration of enrollment at King's also has to consider changes in course enrollments. And this is because King's students are taking courses at King's, they're taking courses at Dal students are taking courses at King's as well. So we need to be looking at that mix in enrollment. So what this slide tells is a different story. King's course enrollment grew by 18% over the last decade. And this particular year, even though King's has had less continuing students overall, the course enrollment in all of the King's programs, including the upper year programs, has grown. So there's a change that's happening, and this slide also shows a change in the balance of courses that are being King's students are taking at Dal and King's. So you can see that here at King's, our enrollment in the King's courses has grown, while the percentage of students taking classes at Dalhousie has gone down. And so one of the things that the college is going to be working to understand better over the next year are, what are the reasons for these changes? What are some of the forces that have been active, and how does the college need to respond? And any response by King's is necessarily going to need to be managed closely with Dalhousie, and we are working with Dalhousie and particularly the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences to figure out what we need to do to address these things. So Dr. Cooper noted that one of the forces at work in the world is increasingly a trend to internationalization. This year, the provincial government made just shy of $1 million available to support the universities in Nova Scotia collaboratively to address the demographic changes that are facing us. And King's took full advantage of the grant. We carried out market research in 5 new international markets, and those included the giants that Dr. Cooper referred to, India and China. The Enrollment Management Committee will be working very closely with the knowledge and the experience we gained through that outreach to determine those places in the world where the students' interest in the humanities and journalism will warrant our investment of time and financial resources. We were also, through that funding, able to host national delegations and international delegations from India, as well as from British Columbia and Alberta. And again, this summer, we'll be hosting an inbound delegation of counselors from Ontario. So those are areas where the demographics continue to be quite strong, and we are working to build those relationships and increase some of our student mix from those areas. So in response to the changes that we're experiencing, as well as the opportunities and to the priorities that were expressed in the strategic plan, one of the actions that the university has taken is we will be updating the enrollment plan. This is led by the Enrollment Management Committee, and the Management Committee will be working closely with the Academic Planning Committee that Kim is going to be talking about in her time. Enrollment Management created a subcommittee to lead the development of the plan, and its members are Dr. Susan Dodd, Professor Tara Tayer from the School of Journalism, Michaela Sam, student representative, and myself. And as with the strategic plan and the academic and research planning processes, we will be providing multiple opportunities to involve the various university constituents, either through a written submission or one-on-one meetings and town halls, to continually advise and have an iterative process in the direction forward. I hope that you will help the committee to chart our course forward by sharing your views, and the views in particular that we're most interested in hearing your input on are, what strategies can we use to attract a more diverse student body? How do we meet student needs better as they arrive at King's, through the course of their enrollment at King's, and as they graduate from King's to move on to the next stage of their lives? And we also want to consider the ways that we attract students and that we keep students at King's and Dalhousie. So how do we upgrade our recruitment practices to make them more competitive? There are a lot of forces at work out there in that environment, and we need to make sure that the tools that we're using and the approaches that we use are best in class and fully representative of the quality that the King's experience offers to students. We have to show what we are in the way we communicate with our prospective students. What are the best practices in terms of student retention is the other area that we want your input on in particular. So I hope that you'll engage in the process and very much look forward to the changes that will be coming as a result of engagement of the community in this process. Thank you.
Hello, I am Adriane Abbott, and I am the Director of Advancement. I know that many of you will know this, but it doesn't hurt to review that Advancement has the three responsibilities of communications, alumni relations, and fundraising. And while these areas are completely distinct, they are also wholly interdependent, with communications being central to all of them. So it's where I will begin with my report on what's happening. We were very fortunate, obviously, to roll into our anniversary year with the broadly celebrated announcement of the establishment of the Donald Sobey Scholarships. Mr. Sobey's gift of $2 million to provide for an unprecedented level of student assistance at King's. It was also an unprecedented opportunity for our communications manager, Cheryl Bell. And this was intentional on Mr. Sobey's part. He stated in our press release that he wanted to make a gift that would have a transformative impact on King's fundraising capacity, particularly for this upcoming historic anniversary year. For the fullness of his great gift and for what it will do for our students, but also what he knows it will do to help the work of our office, we are grateful. Other than this happy announcement, the main piece of business preoccupying the communications office, although I should stop and say that there are a gazillion things that occupy our communications, our lone communications officer. But the main piece of business is a strategic communications plan. And we have been doing this in partnership with Elizabeth Yeo and the Registrar's office because marketing and recruitment is a rather large piece of the external relations pie. So Elizabeth and I have both been working with a communications firm by the name of National, located here in Halifax, and they have been working in a consultative manner with us all the way through the strategic planning process. And they have produced, we have been looking at various things, and the first thing here is that we've been looking at what are called the brand pillars. There's been some discussion about brand, and I know that it's a word that comes up in public relations, but is somewhat antithetical to how King's may see itself. But the point is that the brand of King's is strong, and our office is not working to change it. We are looking for ways of articulating it, and so we have and bringing clarity to it so that we can communicate it in a cohesive manner. So the brand pillars are clarity, context, and community. And the next part is going to be called the root narrative. It takes courage to be an original thinker is where we've landed with this root narrative. Now, criticism. I am the first to acknowledge that this project has enjoyed some measure of the critical response that King's holds dear. And the criticism comes in two sort of themes. The first would be, why do we need a strategic communications plan at all? And the second one would be, why this root narrative? So, I want to talk about the first one, why we need this. We need tools to talk to different audiences. And we may be unique, we are unique, but we also have to compete. And we are hearing from our alumni. In fact, I'll give you an example. George and I had breakfast not too long ago with Dan Logan in Toronto. And he asked us, where we were, because his children came home to him and said, that they just had a fabulous presentation by Harvard. Why isn't King's there competing in the same way, in the same level? So while we are who we are and what we are, and we are special and unique, we do have to play the game. We have to be competitors, and we have to compete, and we have to present ourselves in a way that our audience is expecting to see us. And the messages have to come via the channels that they expect to receive them. So we need a strategic communications plan. We need a cohesive presentation. We need to always be, to use the words of public relations, on message. So, and I could discuss this for the whole hour that we've got here, but I'm pushing through. We have not landed precisely, perhaps, on the mark. But I want to say that we are not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, that critical thinking and original thinking and is central to what we do here at King's. One of the more memorable comments that I've received recently came from Dr. Wayne Hankey, who said that in order to perfect this, all I need to do is to add "at King's" at the end. So it takes courage to be an original thinker at King's. And the reason for this, obviously, is that, we heard the same concern from Daniel Brandes, who is the director of our foundation year program, that, while we obviously hold original thinking to be the most important thing we're trying to achieve in our students, we're actually not we're not expecting them to come fully formed, and that it takes a while to let them know that the thoughts that they may hold as that their original thoughts are indeed not original, and that it takes a while to help them understand that. And even though my inarticulation make you imagine that I don't understand this. I assure you that as a student of fine art and applied arts, I can easily remember the time when I was an 18-year-old person imagining that I had developed a brand new weaving technique only to discover that the Incas had perfected it in the 1500s. So I get it. And we have indeed gathered up this feedback, and we have presented it to National, and we are listening, and they are listening, and we are about to have another round of consultation with our students. So I would like to say that we are not perhaps, on the pinhead, but we are not going to we're not throwing it out the window either. So where are we on other areas? Alumni relations. This is our anniversary year, and we have a new to our office alumni relations coordinator, Kathy Miller, and she has been working not only to figure out various aspects of what will happen throughout our year, and by the way, our anniversary year has 16 months because we are celebrating the academic year as well as the calendar year, so we're getting as much out of a year as we can. And in terms of the year, many of the same events will be happening that we will always be doing, but they will be extra special. Things like Encenia will be extra special, and things like coming back in September will be extra special. So we are looking at taking our usual string of events and boosting them, and then supplementing it with various other things, including the anniversary weekend, which we hope all faculty will come and help us celebrate, because while alumni are coming back with the hope of enjoying each other's company, they also very much want to see their faculty. The anniversary weekend has got a website of its own, Kings 225, and we have, I believe, close to 250 people already pledging to attend. So now we have changed gears from wondering about whether people will come to wondering about what to do if every one of our alumni come. But it's going to be a great weekend. One of the elements of the anniversary, and indeed something that we will be capitalizing on at the anniversary weekend, is an exhibition of King's history that will be put on display in the Margaret and Wallace McCain Gallery. The library has been hugely helpful for us. They've offered to assist us with some of our presentations that we have to make in terms of celebrating each decade on the anniversary weekend. And Janet Hathaway has been working to select various items from the archives which will be going on display. And we are going to be producing a catalog for this exhibition, and Henry Roper has kindly agreed to write an introductory essay to the catalog. So thanks to the library for helping out, and I look forward to working collaboratively with all the other areas. One other thing before I switch gears and go into the development area, it's again this communications and alumni relations marrying, but we are going to be sending you a email signature that we hope that everybody will be doing this tomorrow, and we hope that everyone will adopt it and use it, because it will not only promote the anniversary, but also, until this is over, encourage people to come to the anniversary weekend. So development, my favorite area. The main goals for the development area continue to be the lodge, the pit, and the wardroom. This is a $3 million campaign that will hopefully see the lodge changed from this is the sunroom in the lodge, which is what it looks like today, to back to something that looks closer to this. And we are also hoping that the pit, even notwithstanding its recent floods, has new chairs that are going to, and movable staging that is going to be coming in, and the Black Box Theatre that we all know and love is going to be, is under renovation and will be hopefully back in shape in not too long. We have received gifts for both of these areas, and there are various reasons why we are not announcing them quite yet. The pit in particular, we are hoping to invite the donor who is making this possible, and we would like to announce it at a time when we can actually take them into their space and have them enjoy a play with us and to celebrate it at that time. And last but not least, the wardroom. The wardroom has had several years of design consultations, and we are hoping that the wardroom come September will look a bit more like this. The annual fund is also underway, and I am pleased to say that we are receiving lots of gifts, and that the anniversary indeed is helping to boost that. And I would like to thank the faculty and staff for their giving, which is also increasing. And to bring it sort of full circle back to my comments about Donald Sobey at the beginning of my speech, just recently we received a gift from an alumnus who had wrapped their check in the printed press release of the Sobey gift, and said that I'm sure you will say that all gifts help, but you have to admit some gifts help more than others. And he sent us a gift celebrating our anniversary, and that's the kind of thing that we love to get, and large or small, we appreciate everything, and we particularly appreciate the gifts from within our own institution as well. So thank you.
You're still here. Wow. This is staying power. This is King's staying power. I'm here to talk a little bit about the academic part of our mission, which is the heart and soul of what we do. So it's really nice to see so many faculty here, some students, and of course the staff. I'm really happy that you managed to stick in for this. A few things. Our academic reviews. In the past year and a half, we've completed reviews of all our academic programs, all 5 of them. The 3 combined honors, FIP, and the undergraduate programs in journalism. The exercise involved each unit consulting with its community, preparing a self-study that looked at the strengths, weaknesses, and challenges that each program faced, and then inviting outside experts to come in and take a look at us, which is sometimes can be a little bit unnerving. The review exercise was exhausting, and you just want to ask Pat Dixon, Sharon Brown, and Kelly Porter, who are the heart and souls of all our reviews, and also faculty Daniel, I won't forget. The results have been invigorating. For each of the programs, each review has resulted in recommendations to improve the teaching and learning of all our programs, all to the benefit of our students. We've now extended this practice and set out a process for all non-academic support units, starting with the Registrar's office. So we're going to have reviewers in February for 2 days to take a look at the Registrar's office again, how we can improve and services for our students, and so that we are in fact living up to the promise that we made in the strategic plan. That's to be transparent and provide students with the best academic and support services. Next year there'll be another academic unit or non-academic unit that will be reviewed, and so on. There's a whole schedule set out over the next 6 years, which is very similar to the way the academic units work now. These academic reviews have prepared each program to engage more fully in what's been referred to by Elizabeth and George for our academic and research planning processes. And faculty members here have started the process to craft an academic and a research plan. And the idea behind it is to set out our goals for the next 5 years, and maybe even with an eye to a longer term scenarios as well. And it's a faculty-driven process, and it's under the auspices of the Planning and Priorities Committee. And at its meeting in November, they formed a subcommittee, 2 subcommittees, to lead the development of each plan. So the academic plan, Neil Robertson is the chair, Fred Valence-Jones sits on it, Michaela Sam is a student representative, and I'm sitting on it as VP. The research plan, Gordon McHewitt is the chair of that. Roberta Barker, who is here, yes, is a faculty member, and I'll be sitting on it as well. And what will happen is similar, if we can remember last year, to our strategic planning process. We're following a very similar structure in these sessions. Each committee is going to provide many opportunities that involve each of the constituents through written submissions, individual meetings, town halls, that kind of thing, to talk about these, what are the challenges, where do we want, how do we envision ourselves as far as academic programming and developments and new initiatives. Same thing for research plan. How does it fit with our what we teach, our programs, the future of our programs? And this will happen over the next few months. In fact, I'm going to go off camera here we have email addresses, and I'm not using the PowerPoint. I hope that's okay. I'm an old-fashioned. So we have email addresses that people can give individual submissions. So for the academic plan, it's academic plan 2013. That's when we started it, at gmail.com. And for the research plan, I suppose we could just guess that it's going to be the same. Research plan 213 at gmail. I'm sorry, my writing's awful. Mail.com. If you need a translation later, I'm happy to do that. All these submissions will be treated confidentially by the committee, so there's not going to be any names. You won't be saying, oh, Simon thinks this, or Elaine thinks that kind of thing. So we are also having individual sessions. So for the academic plan, we're going to be in the boardroom. The members will be in the boardroom all day on Friday, January 17th. And you can make appointments with Pam Hazel in the president's office. For the research plan, we're going to be there on Thursday, January 23rd. So you can come in and sit and yak with us if you'd like. And we're looking for your comments. I really can't stress enough how important these planning processes are, and they're necessary for the academic renewal and the innovation of our university, of who we are. And I will also add that the outcomes will also help shape and help Adriane's office enormously in helping to shape the capital fundraising campaign. Neil and Gordon aren't here. Neil was here and had to leave, I believe. But please, if you've got questions, fire off questions to them. Apart from that, I think I'll stop there, and thank you so much for listening to all of us. I'm hoping that you have questions, and I'm going to moderate the question and answer session. If you've got questions for the president, for the Burser, for the Registrar, for the Director of Advancement, or me. So, thank you, and questions, please. Maybe I can bring